I don't know what I do. I can't do it. Well, this is better. Okay. Oh, really, that's terrible. Yeah. What was he? Okay, I think we're ready. No public university. I figured out. So, you know, yeah. Yeah. That's really, that we were so successful. And there's another person in the waiting room. Let's see. Okay. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. And okay. Great. So I'm trying to share the flag. I don't know. I'm not very not very adept at sharing the screen. I got used to the Google Meet, and so I'm not very adept on Zoom. But can everyone see the flag? And,
yes, we can see it.
We'll just go ahead with the pledge. All right, great. So we'll just go ahead with the Pledge of Allegiance then. Great. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
And to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I don't know why this I think we have a lot of Pledge of Allegiance anxiety sometimes, but it's a good way to get our meeting off. So I did want to acknowledge tonight that there's a lot of terrible things going on in the world, and there's war and violence and unspeakable cruelty right now, and also climate disasters that are really affecting people. And it's a time that we really, so many of us have health issues, or struggling, have lost loved ones to the fentanyl crisis or drug or alcohol addiction, or just are struggling economically. So I think it's important, some of us are just exhausted. We've been fighting Trump and MAGA and QAnon for so long. We need to be kind to everyone, take our time. If people need to step back for a while, that's all right. We'll be here. We'll save your spot. And when you're ready to jump back in, we'll welcome you. But we just need to try to be kind and make this world a better place. So our first speaker tonight is an incredible person, Jenna Panas from the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence. She has had a whole career in trying to help people in terrible circumstances, homelessness, domestic violence, women and children that need help. And she's going to talk to us about that. And this organization, a lot of us belong or attend the citizens civic engagement beyond voting meetings on legislation. But I have to tell you, the Arizona Coalition, their work on legislative policy is just tremendous. They give very, just really informed, professional, very thoughtful positions. And we should all be looking at that and seeing where we can jump in and help them with RTS or through writing letters to the editor. And Jen is going to talk to us about the work they're doing and all their great legislative and policy analysis.
Thank you so much.
With that, we'll turn it over to Jenna.
Marie, is it all right if I share my screen?
Yes, let's see. I think you should be able to. Yeah.
Yeah, I checked.
Yeah, can everyone see that?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, I'm just going to give a little background before I start on what the coalition is and then why these issues are important. And I apologize. I think, at the start, saying that we're all kind of beset by these kind of worldwide catastrophes. Unfortunately, when you're invited to talk about domestic violence and sexual assault, I'm not a joy bringer. I certainly hope that this is more seeing critical issues that actually have fixes, though, and so hopefully if you can take some hope and heart from that. But the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence is the federally recognized coalition here in Arizona, Every single state has one. This was part of the formation under VAWA to just recognize domestic violence as an issue because it hadn't been previously. And then when Sexual Assault Coalition's founded, they chose that same model. So we are the statewide organization for Arizona. And so what that means is we are essentially the information clearinghouse, we are the provider of training, we are the expert consultation for the state. And then most importantly here, we are the voice of survivors and program coordinators at the Capitol. And so that's why we do this work. And so when we talk about domestic violence nationally, we do know that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience domestic violence. So this is not a problem that affects a small segment of our population. It's a huge segment of the population. I know that there are either people in this chat or there are people that you know that have experienced domestic violence that you may know of or you may not. But it is an extremely prevalent issue. And then when we look at sexual violence, the numbers go up. And so it's 1 in 2 women and 1 in 4 men. And then the numbers for transgender individuals are even higher, 1 in 2 for such a small population. Here in Arizona, we have terrible numbers. We are pretty much the bottom of the nation when it comes to domestic violence. We experience higher rates. We do think that the indigenous, the tribes, do have a little bit to do with that, just because their numbers are even higher than most. But in last year, we had 101 domestic violence fatalities. And so those are folks who are killed because of domestic violence. And then an estimated over 12,000 sexual assaults in Arizona in 2018. So this is significant. This is why I'm here to kind of set the stage and talk about it. So legislative priorities. So what I'm going to do is share our priorities for this session. Recently, at least in the last few years, given our divided legislature, most of our priorities do not come to fruition. We can always find sponsors, but unfortunately, most of our bills don't even make it to hearing. It's just not something that folks have been interested in. So most of the time what we are doing is playing defense, and as was pointed out, writing position papers on whatever surprises get handed to us. But this is our proactive agenda. These are the things that we are most concerned about for 2024. And so number 1 is firearms. So many of you may have heard that in the 5th district, there's a case called Ramini. And the Ramini decision, what that did was it overturned the ability for law enforcement and the courts to take away firearms if a perpetrator was under an order of protection. And so that, unfortunately, really impacts domestic violence victims, because 74 to 80% of domestic violence homicides are caused by firearms, and a woman is 1,000 times more likely to die if there is a firearm present in the home. So this is a really critical issue, and the Supreme Court is going to hear Rahimi now on November 7th. So we'll have a little bit better idea of just how bad the situation is. But we have a long-standing issue around firearms in Arizona, as I'm sure you are all aware. We love guns. We just can't seem to control them. And so we do believe that removing firearms from folks who commit harm and commit violence is absolutely critical. Currently in Arizona, we do not allow felony, those who've been convicted of felony domestic violence to have firearms. They're called prohibited possessors. And we also have stipulations in place for those that have orders of protection against them. What we would like added is that misdemeanant domestic violence offenders also be prohibited possessors. It is rare for domestic violence to get a felony charge, and so this would remove firearms from anybody who would be at risk. There are also really significant administrative process problems with this. So survivors literally have to ask the court for the court to include the order against firearms in an order of protection. How many survivors know they can have that option? Very few. How many survivors are there without legal representation? Most. And so what ends up happening is while survivors have this right under order of protection, judges aren't enforcing it, people aren't asking, and then if it does appear, then that victim has to report the offender that they have a gun in order to get law enforcement to go get it from that person. So it's broken. It just doesn't work. So we have some administrative pieces to add in here. This has been written. And Representative Jennifer Longden sponsors this for us every year because she is amazing and really believes in this. And so this will be moving forward. Again, unfortunately, probably will not be heard in committee, but with Ramini, I think a lot of folks are actually kind of paying attention to this, and hopefully we'll be able to get it to hearing, which I think would be wonderful. Our other piece is Sexual Assault Survivor Bill of Rights. So in our state, we do not have a legislative requirement that survivors get to know the status of their rape kit. That's unusual. That should not be the case. Survivors also do not have the right to have a victim advocate present while an exam is being done. If you know anything about forensic medical exams, they're very traumatic. They're very invasive. They take everything from you, including your clothing and all of the scrapings and substances of your own body. And so this is a really traumatic process. Survivors also do not have the right to choose the exam location, which has resulted in most recently a 15-year-old survivor of rape or rape victim being removed by the sheriff's office from the hospital in handcuffs in order to go to the FAC in order to have an exam there, because that is where the sheriff's office wanted it done. So that is not at all appropriate. Want to change that. So we already have in Arizona the right to terminate legal ties with the assailant, which means like if there's a shared child based on rape, that the parental rights will be terminated. There's no legal requirement that the victim has to associate with the assailant. So we are planning on amending Title 13 to include a section on the sexual assault bill, or the sexual assault survivor rates. Right now we are talking to Peterson as well as Hernandez about this, and we'll see. This might actually be a bipartisan bill, which is really exciting. Maybe we'll get to move it forward then. The other piece is on housing protections. I don't know if y'all are aware, but we still have the ability to evict folks who experience domestic violence in Arizona if they call the police too many times based on nuisance laws. There are a lot of municipalities that have moved to correct this, but there are a lot of municipalities in Arizona who have not. So we wish to essentially add crime victims, specifically domestic violence victims, to protection from that eviction. And then we also want to add, conversely, the ability to terminate a lease based on the experience of domestic violence. Right now, you can do that if you report to law enforcement or you have an order of protection. But any of you who might have experience with domestic violence might realize that reporting to the police is very, very dangerous. In many cases, and orders of protection do involve letting the person know there is an order of protection against them. So if you want to escape quietly, terminate your lease, not let anybody know that that is happening, and just kind of flee into the darkness and safety, that's not an option for you. And so we want to expand this to allow medical professionals or domestic violence advocates to also be able to certify to the experience of domestic violence. And then our last proactive agenda item is on human trafficking. Right now, human trafficking is just so broadly and poorly used, but here we are talking about victims of sex trafficking, which are not small children, as Save the Children likes to say. But most victims of sex trafficking are, yes, older teens and transgendered individuals, young men, as well as women of all ages. And so a lot of them have substance abuse issues, mental health issues. They are not the shiny crime victim that folks like to paint. And unfortunately, often, in addition to being forced into sex acts, they are also forced into other types of crime. And so folks who are trying to leave that, to seek safety, often have criminal records that kind of prevent them from being able to get other types of jobs, stay in certain type of housing, etc. So while we do allow any kind of convictions of prostitution can be vacated, other non-violent crimes stay on the record. So we're talking about the possession of substances, petty theft, those types of things. So we're looking to move to have that essentially decriminalized to be able to vacate the issues. This one is not popular. Folks really want to help victims that fit the definition, right? Like domestic violence is this, very white, very well-off person and want to save her. But victims of human trafficking tend to be a little less sympathetic. And then finally, the last thing I want to share with you is the state of funding for victim services in Arizona. So we all know that we're facing a budget deficit, 450 million, I think at last count. And so the state budget is in a little bit of a crisis. And to top it all off, there is a source of federal funding called the Victims of Crime Act, the Crime Victims Fund, that is empty. And so it has largely been filled by fines and fees, by prosecution, by the Department of Justice. And they have shifted to deferred prosecution models, which is wonderful, but unfortunately has not resulted in fines and fees. And so what that means is that many years we have counted on billions of dollars in that fund, and now it's at zero. And so we are getting allocated 1.2 billion federally. What that means for Arizona is that we normally receive about 52 million to the state, and we are going to get about half of that. And so we're going to have a gap in services of about 22 million in federal dollars that aren't going to come to Arizona. And what that money has paid for in the past is services for domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and secondary victims of homicide. And so all of that funding is going to go away. We had managed to fill this gap last year through American Rescue Plan funding, and that's all gone. So essentially what we're going to see this year is a $22 million drop in services. So you can imagine providers are going to close and services will be lessened. So we will advocate again this year for shifting of dollars away from law enforcement or away from prison systems in order to fill some of this gap. The other issue that we have is the Domestic Violence Services Fund, which is a state line item of funding, has not seen an increase since 2017. It sits at 4.2 million. And with our rate of inflation as well as our population increase, we just try to maintain it. We're really looking at 5.2 million necessary. This is another fines and fees fund. It used to be funded by marriage licenses only, but we need general fund dollars in order to kind of make up the gap. And then we have a sexual violence services fund. That was funded at $8 million 2 years ago with American Rescue Plan money, and all of that temporary funding ends in 2024. That was the first time ever that Arizona actually funded services for sexual assault from the state budget. We've never contributed as a state to that, just relied upon federal dollars. So kind of like childcare. Arizona doesn't fund childcare, doesn't fund sexual assault. But in order for the services that we're able to start up because of that, that funding availability, they will close if the funding doesn't continue. And so unfortunately, that means 2 rape crisis centers in Phoenix, as well as expanded services in Coconino County, in Navajo County, and some pieces that were stood up in Tucson will all shut down as a result of that. So just agency involvement. If you are interested in specific information about domestic violence, sexual assault, what we tend to do is highlight issues that will impact survivors. And so that means anything that involves a victim, anything that would impact their economic status, anything that would impact their safety. If these are issues that you care about, I do a bi-weekly legislative update, bills to watch, things you can do. You're welcome to sign up for that, and I will send it out if you are interested. And then the other way you can get involved is we have an advocacy day at the Capitol. It is open to everyone. So if you are a survivor yourself, or you're just interested, or you work with a provider, you're a volunteer, come on down, and we will send you to meetings and get you in front of folks to be able to talk. And I try to fit a lot in, but if you have any questions, I know you have a very packed agenda, so I respect it if you just want to boot me out, but if you have any questions, please let me know.
Do we have any questions from our group? I think this is one of the organizations we really should monitor their recommendations on policy and legislation and help out when we can. So if you're not signed up for their alerts, this would be something that would be a good idea to get on their email list and pay attention to. This is a very serious problem in our state, and something we need our legislators to be working on proactively and take to heart. I mean, unfortunately, our LD7 legislators tend to be more interested in chaos and spreading QAnon theories and election denial, but this is why we really do need to get to work to elect legislators that'll actually address our problems. So is there anyone have any questions for Jenna?
Thank you, Jenna. Appreciate it.
No problem. I did drop my email in the chat, so if you think of a question later or you want to email me directly to get on the update list, that is the easiest way to get a hold of me. Just want to thank you all for your time. That was really generous. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Oh, thanks so much. We really appreciate your time. And this being Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Jen, you still hear me?
Yes.
My name is...
We can hear you.
Thank you. My name is Jim Bannon. I came all the way from Apache Junction, and I'm sitting in front of a Staples store. But I'd like to offer all of my services to you for free, pro bono, So if you have a pen, please write down this website. ROI, as in return on investment, track without the K, TRAC.com. And you can just press the button homepage. I plan to be running 4 UN races this year or 2024. And I am very passionate about your topic and your efforts. Therefore, everything I do for you will be totally pro bono.
Well, thank you, Jim. That is very kind, and I have the website. I appreciate that.
The next time I will read my email a little more closely. I was hoping to meet Ruben here. So that was a 7-hour round trip mistake.
Oh, sorry for that, Jim. All right, anyone else? Last chance. Okay, so our next speaker tonight is Sarah Benatar. And I think most of us from Coconino County know and love Sarah, all her great work that she does for the county. She's just a tremendous advocate for us, for good government. She's a great advocate for women, for reproductive rights, and she's become our leader on the topic of environmental, social, and governance investing, and the right-wing efforts to prevent that and force public and private entities and even us individual investors to not be able to access ESG information or be able to direct that our portfolios be invested that way. So without further ado, I'm going to have Sarah talk to us about ESG investing and why we should care about this. It may not be, you may not have heard of this topic before, but it's a huge topic. They actually managed to get an anti-ESG bill to Governor Hobbs's desk last year, and Governor Hobbs vetoed it. But we can expect to continue to see these attacks on this type of investing and this type of research and analysis and decision-making about what kind of investments our counties and public entities should use. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Thank you, Marie. And thank you everyone for having me. It's so great to see so many of you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. And I'm going to pre-apologize. My little one's home right now. So she's 4 and sometimes she likes to pop in and say hello. So if she does that, just letting you all know ahead of time. As Marie said, I'm Sarah Benatar. I am the Coconino County Treasurer. I'm here today to talk about ESG. So before, just kind of show hands, you can raise a little hand in the in Zoom, but how many of you had heard of ESG before Marie sent the email out? And it's okay. Okay, a few of you. Most people haven't heard of ESG, and that's okay. So it stands for environmental social governance. And the way it is, it's a way to look at risk and performance. And it's mostly used by companies, corporations to evaluate how is our company doing, what investments we want to look at. And on the government side and investing side, it's used for the same way to evaluate who we want to invest our funds in terms of when we purchase corporate bonds, for example. ESG, it's a great risk factor to see how they're going to perform in the long term. And that's key, is it's a long-term risk analysis. It's not necessarily short-term. So environmental, that's really everything from climate change, energy, biodiversity, deforestation, water, etc. How is a company addressing this? When you look at it from a business perspective, how are we doing in addressing the environmental needs and in our community and the future in the world? Social is S, that is, so diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI. That falls under social, everything from how you support your employees. Are you supporting them to have access to reproductive rights? Are you supporting them with access to abortion? Are you supporting them in terms of, you know, labor and union organizing, health and safety, trainings, education, supporting, and then the other big thing is too, are they, you know, taking any positions against, for example, limiting who they do business with based off of the type of products they produce, such as firearms. That's another thing that falls under social. And then governance is just really how is this business performing? Are they being transparent? What's their board diversity? Are they, you know, paying their taxes? Are they in a lot of lawsuits, etc.? So it's really, again, a tool used to evaluate risk and look at the long-term risk. So I gave just a very, very quick overview. And the reason why is because there is a national movement. We've seen it in Arizona. Arizona was ground zero. Now it's been the last 2.5 years with bills being introduced that there are anti-ESG, meaning that they prohibit your local governments, counties, cities, school districts, your state treasurer, controlling, for example, limiting your retirement funds. So like the state retirement programs, as to who they can do business with and what they can invest in. And it's prohibiting us from being able to use ESG and any sort of way for us to evaluate. So we can't use ESG as an evaluation criteria. We also, what they're doing, I put it all under anti-ESG, but they are prohibiting us from being able to do business with companies, for example, who they quote, discriminate against the firearm industry. We can't do business with organizations that have a DEI policy, so diversity, equity, inclusion. We can't do business with organizations that give any sort of money or funding to nonprofits and other companies that do sex education in K through 12 or provide abortions to anyone under 18. These are all bills that have been introduced in the past year here in Arizona, and some of these have passed in other states across the country. And so it's been a big national movement. We are actually now starting to see it happening at the national level in Congress. So earlier this summer, for example, I went and I testified before Congress on the harms of anti-ESG legislation with a bunch of bank regulators, because again, it's this national movement to prohibit and pretty much what they're trying to do is they're prohibiting companies from taking these positions on environmental, social, and good governance. And how are they doing it? Through money, through your taxpayer money. So they are weaponizing taxpayer monies to control and tell businesses how to function. And how are they doing it? By telling governments, we're not going to work, you can't work with them anymore. So a great example of that has been Florida and Texas. They have seen triple-digit million-dollar increases in costs as a result of these types of legislation going through. And so in Arizona, we know it's going to continue. We've fought it off for the last 2.5 years. We know next year it's going to come back. And we also know that if they can't get what they want in terms of getting it through the legislature, and we know, thankfully, Governor Hobbs has vetoed the ones that have made it to her desk. You know, we are hearing talks of they're going to put it on the ballot. So a big piece is just education. What is ESG? And before I continue, Marie, am I able to show just a brief video?
Oh, sure, that'd be great.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen and hopefully I do this correctly, because I have my little instructions to make sure the audio goes through too. Okay. So let me. Oh, here it is. Okay. This video. Okay, I'm gonna play this video.
You've probably heard of this thing called ESG.
Can you were you able to hear that when I was playing it? Okay. All right, I'll keep it going.
Yes, yes.
So this is a video that the other side has right now. It's their brand new short 2-minute video. So I'll play it all out.
ESG, or environmental social governance, is an ambiguous method used to encourage corporate responsibility that has quickly gained popularity. But in practice, ESG is a Trojan horse used by partisan activists to drive their progressive agenda through economic coercion at the expense of American companies and your retirement. Under environmental progressives' green agenda, misguided climate change policies have been weaponized to dismantle the American energy industry, create global insecurity, and to attack small businesses and farms. Subjective, socially desirable policy has forced companies to adhere to progressives' demands, like hiring for race over merit, or promoting activist movements that could soon include supporting abortions and stripping away Second Amendment rights. Corporate governance forces companies to prohibit certain political contributions and prioritize diversity and activism, putting partisan priorities over profits, leading to lower shareholder value. So, how does ESG impact investment opportunities? Under ESG-based investing, investor returns are deprioritized. American global competitiveness is damaged. Authoritarian regimes like China that don't adhere to ESG standards profit where U.S. companies suffer, and America's national security is put at risk. Remember, ESG evaluation is subjective. From the gas pump to the grocery store, ESG is putting a strain on hard-working Americans. No matter what you call it, ESG, conscientious capitalism, or something else, fiduciary duty still matters. It's time to stand up for our values. For more information on the dangers of ESG, visit ourmoneyourvalues.com.
So that gives you, obviously you can see what they're promoting and what they're saying this all is, which is not true. And at the end of the day, when you think about you end it on fiduciary duty. I have a duty to the taxpayers to look at risk. And that's the number one thing is safety, liquidity, and yield is what I always say. And so safety of taxpayer money comes first. If I'm not evaluating risk, and that means long-term risk, if I'm not seeing, how are they treating their employees? How are they addressing the needs of our communities? How are they planning and addressing climate change? Are they going to be around 5 years from now? Then I'm risking taxpayer money. So this whole that we need to be first putting forth our gaining money and sacrificing risk, I think is actually a violation of fiduciary duty. And I feel many individuals feel that same way. And it's very interesting and very dangerous what they're really pushing. And as I think you guys saw in that video, they're pretty much saying that we are forcing liberal Democrats are forcing our policies and beliefs onto people. And the reality is actually they're forcing their beliefs onto corporations and onto government because they are prohibiting us and limiting us in our analysis and who we can even work with through this anti-ESG movement. So I'll stop there and see if anyone has questions. I know there's stuff in the chat. Yes, the video is all lies. It is extremely disappointing. If anyone wants to check out, they have a lot of money behind them. It's the same, the Koch brothers, all the same players. It's the same group that was behind CRT, So critical race theory, this is our new acronym. This is our new favorite thing. I think in maybe it was the first Republican presidential debate, ESG got dropped. But it's a very high trending acronym on far right social media platforms. They're pouring and dumping money into this. They're passing legislation across the country. We've been very fortunate here in Arizona that the County Treasurers Association has been leading the fight against this. You know, 14 of the 15 county treasurers, we sign on to letters saying this is bad. You know, looking at it from a business perspective, it's bad. Looking at it from every perspective, it's bad. So it's, yes, this is very bad. But any other questions? I'm happy to discuss. Sorry, I like to keep it brief and just really have a conversation about it. And I also like to share their video because it speaks for itself.
So
yeah,
Ellen
this is
Williamson.
I put it in the
Yeah.
chat, but do we have any media presence to counter that video?
No, not like this. So there are a couple organizations out there that are taking a little bit more of a lead on promoting ESG.
Hi, people.
Oh, do you want to say hello?
Hello.
But nothing like this. I will say there is an ESG coalition. I don't know if Aubrey's on or not. That's formed. So if anyone's interested, Marie, you could share my email. You could drop in the chat to get more information. But it's pretty much very grassroots right now. There isn't a well put national media platform like this. And so that unfortunately it's not out there. I know, like when I went to Testify, for example, there was some like media clips that were put together with bits and pieces of my testimony that got sent on social media, and they put things like you know, using all the tools in the toolbox, really trying to put a more businessy sense into the argument, but it's not anywhere near like this. So unfortunately, there's not a counter to it. Oh, and Aubrey put the ESG email. So if you're interested in learning more and staying more on top of and up-to-date information, you can email the ESG AZ Coalition 5. What legislation are they passing? Examples? That's actually a great question. So in, oh, I don't have that email on me. So in Texas, for example, they passed the firearms discrimination bill, which means that all levels of government cannot do business with any company that discriminates, and I put discriminates in here, against the firearm industry. Meaning if that includes gun manufacturers and ammunition manufacturers. So for a great example is that's really targeting the financial institutions. So you have Citibank and JP Morgan who have said we're not going to do business with either companies that manufacture the bump stocks or companies that produce weapons of mass destruction for consumer use, and that's considered discrimination. So we wouldn't be able to do business with them because they took that stance. We have seen it pass in states like Florida that straight up say, and Kentucky, I think Oklahoma was another one recently. I believe Missouri was another one recently that says that no government entity can use ESG in their evaluation criteria for public funds and also for retirement funds. So you think about teacher retirement, you know, public safety, all government retirement, your pensions, the monies cannot be used cannot be invested in any place that uses ESG evaluations. So or has ESG policies. So I don't even know how you can get past even investing in like the Dow. S&P, you know, most of those companies have an ESG policy. We have seen where you can't do business with, and past where you can't do business with any company that has a DEI policy. So again, Blue Cross Blue Shield, for example, is the insurance company at our county. We wouldn't be able to do business with them if we were that state that had that pass, which they did try and introduce it. So it's pretty dire, because what it's doing is it is greatly reducing, if not completely eliminating, who governments can work with, what we can invest in, and because they're trying to force companies to essentially, you know, not protect their employees, not allow for, you know, union organizing, not be transparent, not address climate issues, which is really harmful for everyone involved. And at the end of the day, it's going to raise your taxes, because if I can't do business with major companies, who am I going to work with? The NRA bank? Probably not. So then what? It's just kind of been a nightmare to see in those states that have had it passed, and talking to colleagues there of how disastrous it's been for them. Any other questions? I can talk about this for hours, so sorry if I ramble.
Well, this is a really important issue to bring to people's attention. I don't know in our other counties if they're quite as up to speed on it, but all, like Sarah said, almost all but one of the county treasurers is supportive of fighting this anti-ESG movement. And, you know, it's really hurt our county budgets, probably our cities, our school districts, anybody that has public funding. And our own private funding, our own private investments. So the notion that you could tell people they can't look at how a company does business, how they treat the environment, what do they do with their hazardous waste, do they have records of fraud, you know, history of fraud. It's just staggering to think that anyone would even propose any kind of legislation like that, but yet there they are out doing it. So as we get into January, we're going to need to pay attention to this issue and be watching the bills the legislators are dropping and be ready to fight them. So this is another good reason why we need to get some good legislative candidates for LD7. So Sarah is running for treasurer for re-election, as I think all our county treasurers are. And we have Carrie Lopez from Navajo County. Is that right, Larry? Carrie? Also a Democrat. So we have two Democratic treasurers here. And if you haven't done so, you need to get on eQual and make sure that you are signing their nomination petitions so we can get them on the ballot. They can turn their attention to more important matters and get on with their campaigns. So I put the eQual link in the chat, and before the night's over, everybody get out their driver's license, get on eQual, and let's get this done. And let's keep our good treasurers, and maybe we can find some candidates for Navajo and Pinal County that could run. So, or I'm sorry, Gila and Pinal County that could run for treasurer. So thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you, everyone. And I just want to say Carrie is wonderful. Yep. She's terrific. So thank you.
Yep, another great candidate we got to get behind and get her reelected. All right. Well, thanks. Thank you. So we're expecting Ruben Gallego around 7, either a little before or a little after. So I want to get back to our regular business agenda. And we do have the minutes from the September 21st meeting that were circulated before. So I'd like to, with everyone's consent, waive the reading of the minutes and ask if there are any corrections to the minutes. So do we have any issues with the minutes from September 21st? Okay, well, hearing no objections, we'll go ahead and adopt those minutes, approve them. And our next, so I want to make sure we get our business taken care of. So I'd like to just take one matter out of order, if that's all right with everyone. We did have our treasurer pro tem, essentially our assistant treasurer, Curtis Taylor, had to move away from his precinct. So he's no longer a PC, no longer a member of the LD7 committee. And we therefore lost our treasurer pro tem. And that was announced last month by our treasurer, Kathy Yost. So the purpose of the treasurer pro tem, as you all recall, is to have an assistant to the treasurer so the treasurer, if she needs to go on vacation or has to step away for a while, someone could just jump in and take over. We cannot operate without having a treasurer. We're not legally allowed to operate without having a treasurer who is reporting to campaign finance on weekend. And so that was the whole purpose of creating a new position in the bylaws. So we do have a PC that's interested in stepping up to become the treasurer pro tem, Gloria Baum. And unfortunately, an hour before this meeting, she was diagnosed with COVID. So she's not here, but she did authorize me to proceed if we have a nomination and we go ahead with the election. She is happy to accept the nomination. And anyways, so with that, I'll just ask, do we have a nomination for treasurer? And as you recall, I have to ask 3 times if we have nominations for the treasurer pro tem. So do we have a nomination?
Maria, I'd like to nominate Gloria Baum
for treasurer pro tem. Do we have any other nominations for treasurer pro tem? Okay, the last call. Do we have any other nominations for treasurer pro tem? Bobby, do you want to speak to the nomination?
Sure. So Gloria, she has quite a lot of experience actually. She has served as the treasurer of the Navajo County Democratic Committee, so she has some treasurer experience. She was the president of the White Mountain Democrats, or I'm not sure if it was or if she still is, but I know at one point she was. She's very hardworking and she is very committed to advancing the Democratic Party in rural Arizona. So yeah, that's Gloria Baum.
All right. Are we prepared to proceed with her election by acclamation? Our quorum, let's see, our quorum is, we have 127 PCs. Our quorum requirement is 10%. So we need to have 13 PCs here tonight. And let's see, we have 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we do have 13. Can we proceed by acclamation with the election of Gloria Baum as our treasurer pro tem? Is that agreeable with everyone? No objections?
No objection.
Well, hearing no objections. Well, hearing no objections, Gloria will be our new treasurer pro tem, and hopefully she'll have a very speedy recovery from COVID. So the next item up on our agenda, getting back to our regular order, are the chair's reports. The chair, I'll just give a very brief report. The chair has been beating her head into the wall the last 2 weeks trying to resolve software issues. And I got 2 out of 5 resolved. You cannot believe how absolutely frustrating this has been, but so I haven't had time to turn my attention to other matters, but I do want to bring you up to date. Jonathan Nez announced he will run as a Democrat for CD2. which is just a tremendous development for us. And we also have in LD7, a portion of it covers CD6. And there we have some, Kristen Engel is probably the leading Democratic candidate. There are two others. And she would be, or whoever wins the primary would be running against Juan Siscomani. So hence the need to make your choices. If you feel comfortable, if you're ready, get on e-call and let's get this done so these people can turn their attention to campaigning. In LD7, there's a new entry into the Republican lineup for the House. And Andrew Costanza, I do not know him. I wasn't able to find any information about him, but that leaves 5 Republicans running for the 2 House seats. And in the Senate seat, there are 2 Republicans running, Wendy Rogers and David Cook. So hence the need to identify and continue our recruitment efforts for Democrats to run for these 3 slots. And Bobby will talk to that later. So I think that's probably all of my report for tonight, because we do have to move on. So Theo, do you have anything as first vice chair to report? You're on mute.
Okay, no, I don't have any news to report. I do have some PC information to give out when we have time. If not, I can do it next time.
Okay. Bobby, as second vice chair, is there anything you need to bring up to our attention tonight?
Yeah, so I'll just be very brief and give just a quick little update on what the candidate recruitment committee's been working on. Because I know it's almost 7. We're still working on our project to identify elected and appointed positions and then identify the Democrats who hold those positions. It is a research intensive project. So if you're someone who wants to help out but don't want to be, forward facing, it'd be a really good project for you. Still working on several leads. We've had a couple of our leads officially decline, but that at least we have a definitive answer and we can move on to other leads. It's also building relationships for future cycles as well. So and then one last thing, we are going to be scheduling in the candidate recruitment committee just kind of like introductions to some people who are thinking about being a candidate. If you're not part of the candidate recruitment committee and you would like to be part of that, just let me know and I'll make sure you get an invitation to that whenever that happens. And that's all I have for tonight.
Brittany, do you have a secretary's report?
Hi, yeah, I don't really have anything tonight. The only thing I would say is anyone that was at our last meeting, if they were looking for the link for the internal website, I was behind on sending that out, but I did do that before this weekend. Before this meeting today. So if you look in your email, you should have gotten access to the internal website if you had requested it at the last meeting. Other than that, I do not have anything.
Okay. Kathy, do we have anything from the treasurer's side of things?
Well, we
Kathy,
had, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We lost a monthly donor in Curtis, so we've also, meaning we lost a little bit on our income revenue stream. So we're down to 9 monthly donors. So anybody who wants to take a place and donate, $2, $3, $4, $5, $10 a month, I'll take anything. That would be great. As of the end of the end of September, we have 21, what is it? We have $2,090 in the bank. And so we have a continuing income of $138. Well, $132.52 after the Act Blue fees. So we could it would be really nice if we could get that climbing a little bit closer to $200 a month coming in, then we could start doing some stuff with it. So, I'm kind of like begging. So if anybody has a couple extra dollars, you just throw it in the pot. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, and Kathy's also working on a t-shirt project, so we're hoping to have t-shirts ready for people to help with our fundraising and also to help with our organizing next year. So you should be on the lookout for that. We're working on a design, and since we don't have physical office space, we'll be looking at sort of some of the electronic options for print on demand and shipping, so that we can manage all the logistics of getting them out. So I think that's going to be kind of fun to see how that works. I will echo Kathy's remarks on money. Right now, we don't have candidates, so we don't have the expenses that we would have if we had candidates. And we would like to have those expenses. We would really like to be able to say, we're going to send out a letter to every Democrat and every Democratic leaning independent in LD7. And if we figured $1 a letter, we're probably talking about $60,000, $70,000 just for that alone. We would like to be able to say, you know, when it's get out the vote time, we're going to do text banking, and that's going to have a cost. We would like to be able to say, we're going to run some advertising, and that's going to have a cost. So we would encourage you to please, maybe things are tight on the budget, but maybe you have $1 or $2 that you could send us. Like if we were in a real meeting with real people, you could pass a hat and collect $1. You know, please just do that on Act Blue. That would mean a lot to us. If you can afford more money, of course, we would love to see that. But we know things are tight right now. We're getting into the holidays, and there's so many other competing causes and candidates that need our money. And one of them has just joined us, and that is Congressman Gallego. And he is very generous to give us a few minutes tonight to come by and say hi and tell us how his campaign is going. And Congressman, we're all 100% behind you, so we're ready to help you out however we can. Of course, you probably know we have a gerrymandered district. It's very wide, and then it's very long and skinny and irregular, and it's got all kinds of funky kinks. Many of our communities were chopped in half. Our school districts were chopped in half. And you know, it's very discouraging to a lot of people, but we're not going to get discouraged. We're going to get out there and we're going to turn out the vote. We're going to get every single vote that we can, and we're not going to give up. So we're behind you 100%. So with that, we'll turn it over to you, and you can tell us how things are going.
Well, thank you, Chairwoman, and I apologize for jumping in a little late. We are dealing with babies here in Washington, D.C., and I'm not just talking about the House of Representatives Republican caucus who can't figure out what they're doing. I have a 3-month and about 3-week-old baby, and then I also have my niece over who's just under 1. But thank you again for having us. It is very interesting times here in Washington, D.C. We're clearly dealing with what we will see if you let the Republicans take over the House, the Senate, and the White House. This dysfunction is very much a very true representation of the Republican Party. They don't believe in governing. They don't believe in fighting for real, issues and people that actually need help. They actually believe that somehow dysfunction, disorder actually ends up helping. That really ends up helping their bottom line. And the people that are leading it are unfortunately within your congressional district. Eli Crane is one of the, I would say, saboteurs that are here and operating, which is horrendous. As you understand, in that CD, there are 13 federally recognized tribes. There are multiple national monuments. There are multiple national parks. The economy is very much dependent on a lot of the federal government, and someone like Eli Crane is willing to just basically shut it all down because he thinks that that is better than trying to negotiate, good outcomes. And as for a lot of your legislative representatives, it is certainly not representative of the people that I know and have known for many years now of that area. It's not at all reflective of what people truly are, and what you see is such an extreme viewpoint that it's in my opinion is very embarrassing. But this is why we have to all be fighting. And we just had some really hard news last week that Arizona, a growing state, a state that has actually more tax funds and tax revenues coming into the state, is going to have a deficit next year. You don't have accidental deficits in any country or any state when you have a growing population and you have growing tax funds coming in. It happens because you have an economic system and a taxing system that is designed to starve us out. And that's exactly what happened. Arizona has had a growing revenues for so long. And I was, in the state house for a couple of years, that Republicans realized that, the idea of the small and very almost futile government was going to have to grow. So what they wanted to do is make sure that it was starved. So what did they do? They ended up introducing these tax cuts, a flat tax that caused us to where we are. And then we added this voucher system that's going to drain a lot of our school systems, especially our rural school systems. And that people will not really understand this, but I think y'all will understand this more than anybody else. The voucher program works great in Maricopa County because you can actually travel to a very close, private school, even though it's about 95% of that money is already going to students that are already using the program. But at the end of the day, it actually ends up drawing out money out of these, rural programs and rural schools, and they're not going to get replaced. So when the cuts come, and they will, unfortunately, it's going to disproportionately affect our rural areas. And I'm hoping that people will recognize that and will start voting out some of these extremists. But, we talk all about that, but, we have to remember that while there may be some really red districts, and they exist, and this is, one of them, we can't win without these districts. We can't just operate in South Phoenix, where I live, or in Tempe, where I live. We have to make sure that we work for every vote, because the difference between us winning or losing is making sure that we get one more vote out in districts like yours that we have not been able to get out before. And if we have any proof that we need, it's the difference between us having Attorney General Abe Ahmed or Chris Mays, or us having Governor Carrie Lake or Governor Hobbs. Like, these districts matter. We need to be fighting everywhere and all the time. And this campaign believes in that. So if I'm allowed, and we'll see tomorrow, if I'm allowed to actually leave Washington, D.C. Tomorrow, I will be traveling back to the district. I will be doing some work in my district, and then I'm going to travel up to the Navajo Nation for the Tuba City Fair. And then we're going to travel back down and make sure that we get to the Phoenix Pride Parade and do other events all across the state. And, we will be going to red areas. We're going to be going to blue areas. We're going to go to, areas that have not seen a Democrat in quite a while. And we're going to go to all 22 federally recognized tribes, because we need to earn a vote everywhere we can get. And it, at the end of the day, will matter. When you have elections that are decided by 10,000 votes or 15,000 votes, like you saw in 2020, we're not going to take our chances by not walking and talking and asking for everybody's vote. Everybody in Arizona, Democrat, Republican, or Independent, deserves that respect, and we're going to work that as much as we can. But I want to tell you right now, what we have seen so far, what we have worked so far, is paying off. In the 11 months that we've been in so far, we have out fundraised a sitting incumbent, someone that we all used to be supporting, Kirsten Sinema. We have out fundraised her every quarter since I jumped in. Last quarter, we out fundraised her 4-1, and we did it with small dollar donations. Our average donation is $28. We have about 130,000 individual donors. Most of them, sorry, not most of them, the largest amount of them from which state they come from is Arizona. The occupation is teachers, and number 2, retirees. Compared to Kirsten Sinema, most of her donations come from one state, New York, and the occupation you find is either private equity or hedge fund. So we are very much the campaign that is representative of the state of Arizona, and I think of the real Democratic base. Our polling is showing that we are winning in a 2-way race or a 3-way race. Doesn't matter if Kirsten's in or Kirsten's out. We have discovered that she's actually pulling more from Republicans than from Democrats. And, that's something that doesn't surprise us, because we are the only campaign, whether it's Kirsten or Kari Lake, that's actually trying to work for the vote. Kirsten doesn't really meet with anybody unless it's like a very small controlled group, and then she'll tell you about it afterwards. Kari Lake only meets with extreme conservatives, and will only go on very safe conservative channels. We go everywhere, we talk to everybody, and we fight for every vote. And this is why all the polls are showing us in the lead. I feel very confident that we're going to continue to be able to grow that, because we are willing to have those hard conversations in the hardest parts of the state. What we see right now in terms of what Kari Lake is talking about, she's not bringing any solutions, just more fear, just more division. And I think at the end of the day, that's just not going to sell in Arizona. Kirsten Sinema has no message, is entirely dependent on people that want to see her in power because they want more power for those that don't need power. And at the end of the day, she has lost the trust of voters. And the only way you get trust of voters back, as someone who's been elected office as long as I have, is to actually work to actually earn that. And that requires a certain level of humility that she just doesn't have. But we're going to work for every vote. And just for example, last Saturday, we had the first all Spanish town hall that's ever happened in the state of Arizona, where I spoke Spanish the whole time. The constituents that came to ask us questions were also Spanish dominant, only asked us questions in Spanish. It was covered by the Spanish media. And these are the things we're going to do. We're going to win our votes here and there from some of these areas that I think people have not worked in the past, because number one, we want to win, but number two, we do believe that everyone deserves respect from their elected officials, and I'm going to show it to them by actually asking for their vote. So this campaign has been from day one powered by people like you, people that I have known for many years when I first started as a volunteer as an Arizona Democratic Party staff. And I think many of you guys may have met me back in the day when I was handing out little name tags for all of y'all starting in 2005, 2006. I know where the power of winning comes from. And it comes from, empowering, our local Democrats to go and take the fight, as well as the conversation to every other day Arizonans, and we're going to do that. So you have done amazing work. I'm winning right now, and I'm going to continue to win, and we're going to win this because of everything you guys have done. You have believed in me from day one, and we're going to push this all the way. And when I win, it's not actually going to be winning. We're going to make sure that number one, Biden wins also. We flip the state house, state senate, and we pick up a couple more seats in Congress. And let's not write off Jonathan Nez either. That's a district that we can win, something that encompasses your district, something that I think is entirely possible considering how negative Eli Crane is, how out of touch he is with his district, considering he doesn't actually live in his district, but that's a whole other story. And, you know, understanding how crucial the Native American vote is, we can really turn that district. So with that, Madam Chairwoman, I would love to take any questions, and, you know, thank you again for your solid support.
Well, thank you so much. I see we have a bunch of hands up.
Yes,
Ellen,
Chairwoman, you choose them, and send them my way.
All right, Ellen Williamson. You're on mute, Ellen.
First of all, I'd like to thank you so much for being in Washington and representing us right now. You've been doing a great job. And I'm so in support of your Senate race, but I do want to ask you a question regarding the House.
Okay.
Thank you for all of the work you're doing for the speaker problems that we're having. And my question is, how do you guys ensure that Jim Jordan doesn't become the speaker?
So a lot of this is entirely dependent on the Republicans, but we've also been very clear with some of our Republican colleagues that there are some things that just are not going to happen. We're not going to give Jim Jordan a pass just because he's speaker. He is an insurrectionist. He denies still the idea that Biden won the election free and fair. And so our public messaging has been all around that, making sure that people understand that this guy is not some moderating force whatsoever. And when it comes to some things that are very important, it's going to require, some real bipartisan support, which he won't allow. We're very clear with our colleagues on the other side of the aisle that you need to avoid Jim Jordan. For example, a lot of us are very, very keen on making sure that Ukraine gets the weapons and funding they need in order for them to continue their defense of their country. And if you put Jim Jordan in charge of that, it's never going to happen. So we are very, very aware of that, and we're also communicating that to our colleagues. So from what we've seen so far, Jim Jordan is not going to be the speaker. Talking to some of the Republicans I'm very close to that are on kind of the more moderate angle, what we consider moderate, they're sticking together. They're sick of being bullied. They're the ones that consistently create not to create, but they're the ones that actually put the Republicans in charge and in support, and of course in the speakership. So they are not going to take their chances with Jim Jordan. And we, the best we could do is basically continue to communicate to them that like Jim Jordan is a problem. It's not their problem. It's not our problem, but it's a problem for them if they want to stay in charge of the majority. And we're gladly going to make sure that people recognize that as voters.
Dylan Wild is here tonight. Dylan.
Yeah, thank you so much. So first of all, I just want to thank you for your inspiring campaign. We need you in the Arizona Senate so bad. We just have to stop the MAGA Republicans from what they're doing to this country. I have a question for you about Arizona. So recently, the Arizona Works Together campaign announced their effort to repeal right to work through a constitutional ballot initiative.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you support their effort, if that's something would you endorse?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm also I've already sponsored and have sponsored before I ran for the Senate all the Pro Worker Act, everything else we can, just because look, at the end of the day, if you actually want a true middle class, you have to have a active union movement. And even if you're not in union, you still benefit from the union movement. It just is the one the same. And so the days of, I think, Democrats running away from unions, I think it's very much done. That's 20 years ago. If you believe in actually creating a working middle class, it does not exist without unions. That's it. We could do a lot of things. For example, we could raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and we should pay that to inflation. That's great. But if you actually want to create a true working middle class, you have to empower unions to actually have the power to actually organize workplaces. So we are definitely the campaign that's going to be very active and very much not afraid of actually supporting unions.
That is so great to hear. Thank you so much for taking my question.
Thank you, Dylan.
Larry Romo, Larry comes from Navajo and deep red territory.
Yes, as you can see from my background picture of Jonathan Nez.
Oh yeah, President Nez, yes.
Yeah, Jonathan Nez, of course, is as soon as he announced, I'm sitting there, okay, Eli Crane has serious competition.
He does.
Eli Crane didn't even campaign, doesn't even know how many reservations are in his district.
I sincerely doubt he's actually visited any of them, to be honest. Yeah.
He didn't even campaign on them. So as soon as Jonathan Nez announced, I was sitting there, okay, Eli Crane is pretty much dead meat, I think, I hope. Also, Eli Crane, I've heard Republicans talking about, we need to have somebody run against him. So I think his days are numbered, at least I hope they are. So, and with you in the Senate and with Eli Crane gone, there may be hope for us. So hang in there.
I mean, I'll tell you, Larry, and I'm a big Jonathan Nez supporter. I've known him for many years. You know, he's a great leader. But let me tell you something about Eli Crane, is that I have mayors of some of the towns and villages in his district that contact me for the work that he should be doing, because he refuses to actually work on behalf of these small towns. Not even small towns, like irrelevant. When you're a member of Congress, every town's important, right? But I should not be talking to DHS for Flagstaff. I should not be talking to HUD for Camp Verde. I should not be trying to make sure that we're bringing down federal funds for Cottonwood. The fact that I'm doing this, and by the way, I'm a congressman from Phoenix, Arizona. The reason I'm doing it is because your local congressman believes that his only role is to stop the federal government from doing anything, that he won't actually engage in trying to bring down any funds. And the problem with that is a district like that, like his, requires actually a lot of attention because they don't actually have a very diverse local tax base. I don't have to tell you guys all that. You all understand this, but he actually doesn't understand it because he's not from there. He still lives in Tucson. And so that is horrific that I have to do this kind of thing. I do it because I'm an Arizonan. I care all about Arizonans. The fact that he doesn't understand that is a lot of BS. I will not mention the tribe that I was talking to today, but also in his district. And we need to get a water deal done that'll benefit all of Arizona. That'll also benefit that tribe. That will also cost some federal money. He's not going to participate in helping out with that. That's, I don't understand how you're serving people by doing that.
Right.
So thank you, Larry. And hopefully I can see President Nez tomorrow, former President Nez, on Saturday. I'm supposed to be up at the Tuba City Fair, but who knows what the votes are happening here in, here in DC with the speaker.
Okay, we have Mike Montiel from Superior.
Hey, Ruben, my name is
Mike, are you there? Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, Mike.
Cool. So I'm a Arizona native American, member of the Pasquayaki Nation, and I'm a combat veteran just like yourself.
Well,
Army.
Army. Okay.
Yeah. I got it. So it's very heartening to see, or I'm sorry, to hear that there's a lot of conversations around the issues for Native Americans. But my question has to do with the narrative that Republicans have used around their support for the military as well as veterans has almost been weaponized against Democrats to show 100%. That they are. Say again?
Yeah, no, I go ahead. I'm just saying I agree with you. Yeah, but go ahead.
I'm curious, how are you communicating with others to try and get them to understand that Democrats are the ones that are genuinely establishing, some of the initiatives that are actually moving forward that support veterans, but also just in general, the way that they're voting to support veterans? Like, how do you communicate that? How do you get people to understand that?
Well, number one, thank you again for, serving and being a travel warrior. I was very lucky to be in the Marines, not the Army. I apologize. I had
I'm not going to hold it
learned
against you.
Yeah, and I had not learned how to read yet, or else I would have tried to join, right?
I'm surprised you have crayons in your hand right now, but that's fine.
I had crayons for dinner. But the one thing is that most of my lessons and actually understanding from about Native American community and our indigenous friends comes from my brothers that I serve with in Iraq. And that's actually what got me interested really on the politics side of it. And now I've actually I've been on the subcommittee on Indian Affairs now for almost 10 years and past chairman. And as last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, it's all blurring right now. I was just actually in Pascua Yaqui meeting with the chairman and visiting some of the housing developments there. And this campaign, by the way, is going to be the first campaign ever in Arizona to visit all 22 federally recognized tribes. It's never happened in the state before. We're going to do it because, number one, they deserve the respect of a politician asking for their vote. And not just in the last 2 weeks when they realized they're going to be down by 1,000 votes. We're working it. We're actively working it. And we're going to work it all year. And we made this announcement a couple of weeks ago when there's a New York Times reporter with us. So this is not something where I'm just telling you, this is a campaign commitment. And some of these are going to be the hardest places to go. The Hualapai Indian tribe, for example, to get down to their reservation, it's going to take an 11-mile hike. So I'm already training my staff because I know I can make the hike. I'm still a Marine. They may not be able to.
Well, that's awesome to hear that you're doing that, and I'm sure you've already experienced it, but Native communities are hard nuts to crack. They're going to ask like those hard questions.
And they should. And you know what? And one of the things that we've already experienced, because we went going to Pascua Yaqui, and after Pascua Yaqui went to the Tohono O'odham Nation and met with them and had like a 6-hour standing kind of evolving meeting with different leaders as well as just community members. They're very jaded, and as you know, they have a really good reason to be jaded. They have been screwed over by this government. They've been screwed over by politicians. They've been forgotten by politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, for generations. And we have to actively work to earn their support. The problem is that a lot of times we have not even worked to even earn their support. And even when we do get it, then we don't actually follow over on the policy side. And so one of the things I'm very proudful about is that I did a lot of work, in the 10 years to actually, I believe, earn some of that support. I will always keep working more, but, we're definitely going to prosecute that. Number two, on the veteran thing, we're not going to give 1 inch on when it comes to keeping this country safe and or taking care of our veterans, because this is the first person that's ever run statewide in this state that is a combat veteran like I am, who uses the VA like I have, who can actually communicate it, I believe, in a way that most people understand. We had a great candidate many years ago in Richard Carmona, a Vietnam veteran, and he did extremely well. But this is the first campaign that can do it, especially with able to relate to what we understand from the modern wars when it comes to Iraq and Afghanistan. And so we're not going to give an inch. We just, Carrie Lake tried to hit us yesterday on some bullshit thing with Hamas. I don't even know what she tried to do with Hamas. And we were very clear. that's not going to go if she wants to go down that road. And we attacked back and said, Carrie, my experience is actually fighting terrorists. Your experience comes from teleprompter. And we're not going to give 1 inch on that. So whatever may have worked back during the Carrie days, everything else like that, we're not going to do that. I'm a combat veteran. I'm very proud combat veteran. I served some of the hardest, portions of the war. I wish I wasn't there, but I did what I had to do, and I did it to, serve my men first and keep them safe. But I'm not going to let them try to do that to us. And that's the most important thing. We're going to fight them in every inch of that. And when it comes to veterans issues, we're the ones that led on the PACT Act. The Republicans for years refused to support the PACT Act. It wasn't really until, we had some celebrities come in and really put pressure down that they had to fold. And it was because the Democrats had full control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. Because
Jon Stewart is the man.
What's that?
Jon Stewart is the man.
Jon Stewart and a couple other celebrities. But the fact that Jon Stewart had to get involved to get the Senate to unscrew themselves tells you how bad they were. And I was on the VA committee when this all happened. Let me tell you, those Republicans now are all signing the releases, and they were so mad in the subcommittee that we put them in that position that they had to vote against it. They still voted against it, and now they're all denying it because Jon Stewart and other celebrities made them look like the fools that they were. But we're not going to let them forget that, and we're also not going to let people forget that it's the Democrats that led this. It's also the same Democrats, by the way, that led the GI Bill. The modern GI Bill was called the Harry Mitchell James Webb Bill. Harry Mitchell from Arizona, right? So we're not going to let them forget that this is the pro-veteran, pro-military campaign, and this is not Carrie 2.0. We are going to fight you on every inch.
Hell yeah, brother. I got your back. I'm just up here on my little mountain, but I'll do whatever I can for you.
Hey, you got good Overwatch.
Well, we have a lot of Democrats in Superior, and we're going to be Mike's going to be in charge of getting them all out.
Gracias. I love going. I'll go out to.
So we have. So Kyle Nitsky is here. Kyle is with the Arizona Student Association. He's been leading the charge in registering students at NAU, and we're going to come up with some new programs to get them to get out and vote. We have all of the precincts surrounding NAU in our LD7, so that's one of our focus areas. So Kyle, go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here tonight. And I was super excited when you announced to run, specifically because some of the work I've been doing with the End the Filibuster Coalition. I know that you're a strong advocate to get rid of the filibuster, not just because it's archaic and dumb, because it's stopping great progress on so many great bills like the Equality Act, the Worker Act, the voting rights, immigration reform. Something that I've become recently more interested in and passionate about is healthcare. I just turned 26 and I've been trying to get healthcare. I'm off my parents, and it's horrendous. I mean, our system is so broken. In the past, you've co-sponsored Medicare for All as a House rep. I was just curious why you hadn't jumped on to co-sponsor this year's edition yet, or where your head was at for Medicare for All. And again, thank you so much for.
Thank you, Con. I think I got most of it. So we are actually all for all systems, all ways to actually be able to get to healthcare, right? And so we're not against Medicare for All, but we also understand that there are some programs that, for example, want to actually have their own system. So one of the things we heard about is from unions that have some very good catalog plans, and they don't want to be crossed out. But we're not going to be against Medicare for All. We're not going to be against the public option. We need to look at all possible ways to increase as much possible universal healthcare, because the current system is entirely fucked up, and it's ridiculous that we're still dealing with, number one, the fact that people can't afford healthcare and or going into debt with healthcare. I'm assuming you're jumping off your either university plan or your family's plan. That's why you have to go shop for your own system. And the thing that's crazy to me is you're probably 26. I'm assuming you're pretty healthy. And the fact that you're healthy and young, you're probably still looking at probably a premium of what, $350 a month at a minimum. Is that right? That like the actuarial tables do not even make sense. Like the fact that you are paying $350 a month is absolutely ridiculous. It's because the system is designed in a way that is to still prioritize, I would say, for-profit healthcare. And that's the one thing I want to move away from. The for-profit healthcare system is not working. So how do you do that? Number one, we have to really understand like how this is all based. If you go back to many of us that were working on Medicaid expansion when I was in the State House, is one of the things I did. We thought the best thing we could do was expand Medicaid and get it to, I believe it was last when I was there, maybe it had grown to the left, was about $200% above the federal poverty level. The federal poverty level for a family of 4 in Arizona, I think is around $41,000. Maybe it's 39, 41, somewhere around there. And that covers a lot of families, and that gets them on their Medicaid. The one thing we mess up is that, or no, we mess up is the one thing we haven't changed is that when we calculate the federal poverty level at the federal government is we never calculate housing. And so in Arizona right now, housing is going through the roof. And yet we have hundreds of thousands of Arizonans that are dealing with healthcare decisions. But the one thing they can't actually get into the economic model of how they make, whether they can and can't buy, where they are able to earn or receive a subsidy and or be acceptable on access, is how much to pay for housing. So that's the thing that we're going to work on, when we come to the Senate, is actually being able to figure out how to actually understand what real poverty is. You cannot tell me that a single person, by the way, in the United States, poverty level is $11,000. That's ridiculous. And so by doing that, I think we're going to actually make more people eligible for, number one, Medicaid. Number two, some more generous plans on the Affordable Healthcare Act market. But also we should be looking at everything. Public option, another one. We should be able to buy into either a Medicare program or into a, for example, the government program that we have. We should not be looking at. The most important thing we should be looking at is figuring out how we can get the amount of people that are uninsured to zero. And that should be able to, we should be able to do that by whatever means possible. So we're not going to discount anything in that process.
Thank you so much for your thoughtful answer. Really, really appreciate it. Excited to vote for you and bring students out to vote for you too.
Thank you, Kyle. The other thing, and by the way, before we go, Kyle, and just to make sure, because you're talking to students, we're the only campaign, Kirsten Sinema and Carrie Lake, that are 100% for student debt reform. And we're not even shy about it. Like the Republican Party in Arizona tried to hit me on it, and we're like, please keep talking about it, because we actually 100% believe it, and we think it's actually something that will get out more votes. So we are for college debt forgiveness, and we are not going to be running away from that. So please also help communicate that for us.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle.
I know it's getting late, but we have one more hand up, Jim Bannon.
Yes, no problem.
Yeah, Ruben, I'd like to get your formal approval to nominate you as a speaker to Country First's Fireside Chat. I am on the speaker committee. As you know, that's Adam Kinzinger's organization of 300,000.
Yeah, I would love to. I love Adam. Adam and I are old friends.
Can I get your permission to nominate
Yes, you can. Yeah. Tell him I say hi. Yeah.
All right, I will. Number two, are you a member yet?
What's that?
Are you a member of Country First yet?
I don't know. I didn't know that you could become a member, but like if it's something that focuses on preserving democracy, 100% would be.
I will send Nicole my personal invitation.
Perfect.
This avails you, no promise. No promise.
Yeah.
but we now have billions and billions and billions to support the candidates that we select, because we are no longer a super PAC. We are now a 501(c)(3) and a 501(c)(4).
Okay.
I am not only on the speaker committee, I am on the communication committee and the election reform committee. So with your permission, I'm going to move forward.
Yeah,
Now, I need
talk to
to
Nicole, but I'm pretty sure we're going to be aligned politically, and Adam and I were friends and colleagues in Congress together. I mean, even though we were across, political partisanship, we all always got along very well. He's a good man. He's a good man.
Well, we'll get this done formally. Now, I
Gotcha.
need to learn how to read emails from LD7. I actually drove all the way from Gold Canyon. I am now here in Flagstaff. I discovered that their office is a staple store, and I'm sitting in a McDonald's in Flagstaff facing a 4-hour drive back home. Shame on me. So I love your beard. And did you and your son catch any fish when you left Payson?
So no. I needed to plan it better because my son was actually very much excited about going fishing. And so I did some basic research, but I think I needed to take him to a spot that was going to be more active in the fishing. And so we found a really good place. We went to Willow Canyon Springs Lake, just Payson. It was beautiful, but the spot that I found was the best I could find was very crowded, too much paddleboarding, so the fish weren't exactly biting, and he was in the sun too much, and so it was not great. He enjoyed the opportunity, but I think my next goal is to be a little more active in the planning side of this, and find a place that's either more isolated and definitely has a little more bites.
All right.
The other thing is,
now, go ahead,
Jim. Sorry.
Well, one final thing. While I was here, I actually met with people at Staples. I am going to meet or talk to the manager tomorrow. I've done some things on your behalf that I would love to explain to you in a Zoom call. These are things that I could not do in the 2016 campaign that I ran against Mark Lamb, but I was going to do for Mark when he wanted me to run his U.S. Senate race.
Yeah.
And when I asked him to separate himself from the orange buffoon and he refused, I told him to his face that I was going to reach out to your campaign. So,
well, and you did. Thank you for coming for my event in Payson. But definitely talk to Nicole to follow up, and if you have any better not watering holes, any better fishing holes, please give me a heads up. That's the next goal. So I need to take Michael to a real place where he at least catch a fish. He also had his first experience with an outhouse. So I took him afterwards. We went camping to a camping ground in Tonto National Forest, and I made the mistake of trying to take him to a outhouse, and he was horrified.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right. And finally, the other thing I did this morning is I sent Nicole an email asking for a letter of recommendation from you if you feel so inclined, because I have a pending nomination to be on the board of directors of the Arizona-Mexico Border Commission. I must be suicidal.
I was going to say, I don't know why you want to do more work and not get paid, but if you want, yes, we could work on that.
And it looks like I'm going to be running 3 other U.S. Senate races. So I'm going to be a little busy in 2024. So thank you. God bless you. We're going to get you elected, sir. And I can almost guarantee that when you and I talk in a Zoom meeting, you will be blown away in terms of what I've got in store for you.
Thank you. Gracias, Jim. And just keep in contact. Chairwoman, I can take definitely one more question if you want, if there's someone out there.
I I believe we've answered all the questions, and we know you got to get back to those little ones. And thank you so much for your
They're
time.
asleep now. No, I have to.
Our
Well,
next
let me.
senator,
Thank
we
you,
love you.
Chairwoman. I greatly appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to coming up there and seeing you guys, as the kids say, in real life. I'm hoping tomorrow that I'm actually, I don't know if any of you guys will be attending the Tuba City Fair. I know that's outside your district, but in case you are close enough, I hope to be there on Saturday. I was supposed to fly out tomorrow morning. Looks like we have to stay here and vote for speaker, but you will find me many times in your neck of the woods, especially up in Flagstaff. Please reach out to us for events. If I can't make it, I'll definitely send some surrogates, because we want to have a very active campaign that tries to earn your vote, everyone's vote. And we will go everywhere in Arizona for every vote. So please reach out to me and my team. We're going to fight for it.
Right, we're behind you 110% or more.
Gracias. Thank you,
Right, thank you
Chairwoman.
so
I appreciate it. Adios.
Good night. Okay, guys, so we're like way over our time, and we did have a few things that we wanted to cover, but I think probably everyone's ready to call it a night, or do you want to continue?
Well, while I'm here, I can explain what I did for you today. Would you like to hear that?
I'm sorry, Jim, this is our time for our official business on our agenda, and we didn't finish that. So I need to hear from our committee members whether they want to finish our agenda or if they're ready to adjourn.
Of course.
Because we're way over time. And so how does everybody feel about either continuing or adjourning? Larry's got his hand up.
I would like to just make a quick announcement. Okay, first off, Gloria Baum has resigned as president of the White Mountain Democrats. And so we had to have a special election. And so I guess I am now president of the White Mountain Democrats. And we had already been short-staffed because our treasurer had resigned and moved to Colorado. So we have a new treasurer also, or not treasurer, secretary. So we have a new secretary and new president in White Mountain Democrats. And, but I guess Gloria is now the treasurer of the LD7. So, and also we already covered the Jonathan Nez announcement for running against Eli. And also there is a new petition drive that nobody has mentioned. I assume that will be a major thrust to be announced later on, about the abortion petitions to try to put some sense into the Roe v. Wade thing. That is going to be a major thrust in Arizona. They are trying to get an amendment to the Arizona Constitution to make abortions legal in Arizona, and to try to make sense of abortions. So that is something that you'll be hearing much more of in the foreseeable future. They need to get 330,000 signatures on petitions. And in order to have valid petition or valid signatures, they're pushing for about 700,000 overall by the end of June. So there's going to be a major petition drive, and there's petition training going on throughout Arizona. So there'll be training sessions going on. So that's all I got, just quick announcements. That's it.
Okay. All right. So, well, let me ask again. So we're way over time. We did have a special guest tonight, Judy Guinan, who's going to show us the Blue Voter Guide and how that works. I don't know if people would want to spend about 10 minutes, Judy, do you think it would take? And we could take a quick look at that and then maybe adjourn.
Well, you know, it's
This-
late enough
the
that I
new
don't
voter
want to.
guide is
I think it's
okay.
at this
So
point of the night, I think it would be better to. I think everybody's probably pretty tired.
okay. Okay, so is there any opposition to adjourning? And we'll just defer everything that we didn't finish till November. And I think November is going to be a busy agenda too, but we heard some really great speakers tonight and very important information. So if there's no opposition to adjourning, we'll go ahead and adjourn for the night.
Sounds good.
All right. All right. So everybody have a great night. Have a great weekend. I'm going to be up in the Grand Canyon registering voters on Saturday. If you're traveling in the area, you can stop by and table with us for a couple hours. So anyways, let's all keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thanks, Marie. Great
Marie.
meeting.
All right. Yeah. Good night. Good night, all.